Good morning and welcome to Japan. It is the final IFSC World Cup of the season and we are live in Inzai, about 30 kilometres north of the world's biggest city, Tokyo. Charlie Bosco here with Campbell Harrison alongside me. Campbell, before we talk about anyone else's climbing, just quickly explain to the disappointed viewers at home why we're not seeing you in the semi-final.
So maybe about 5 days ago now I took a nasty fall, long story short basically, and rolled my ankle, and it was an injury I did a few years ago, so it was pretty nasty, and it's all black and blue and swollen, and I'm kind of just standing on one leg at the moment now.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job actually. It's actually bringing Campbell a bit more to my height,
yeah.
So it kind of suits me.
Yeah, but climbing was kind of out of the question, and I think will be out of the question for the next few weeks, so I think I missed some of the best routes of the season at this competition, but just watching for the moment.
Yeah, yesterday Christian Binthammer's the chief route setter. Generally sets pretty straightforward, hard routes. They looked really nice yesterday in the qualifiers.
Yeah, it looked like this perfect mixture of low percentage, showy moves. We had a cool little jump in one of the qualifications and some spicy stuff at the start of the other. And then that perfect mix with just pure endurance resistance climbing. And it just looked like such a good split between the climbers. Everyone looked like they had a really good time. So it would have been really nice to be a part of it, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, no, injuries happen.
That's it. That's exactly it.
We will let Campbell sit down for a minute now, and in the meantime, here's the highlights from yesterday's action. Inzai, just north of Tokyo, was the location for the final lead World Cup qualifying day of the season, and the women climbed first. Janja Garnbret had a good time, topping both qualifying routes to canter into the semi-finals, where she'll be joined by Jane Kim, who also got 2 tops and looked on great form. Molly Thompson-Smith of Great Britain couldn't find a top, but progressed to semis alongside Fanny Gibert and Luce Douardi of France. The local crowd will have plenty to cheer in the semis too, with no less than 9 Japanese women qualifying. Youth World Champion Laura Rigora also went through, topping one route and getting close on the other. Joining Janja from Team Slovenia will be Mia Krampel, who was 11th in qualifying, and Lučka Rakovic, who also took 2 tops. This year's season champion Cheon-seo didn't have a great day, not topping either route, but did enough to progress. The other 2 climbers with 2 tops were Ai Mori and Akio Noguchi. The men climbed in the afternoon, and the local team, Japan, had an excellent day with 9 men qualifying for semis, matching the achievement of their female climbers earlier in the day. The only 2 Japanese men not to make it were Taisei Ishimatsu, who only just missed out by coming 27th, and Hidemasa Nishida, who came 41st. Sebastian Halenka continued his run of making semis by coming 16th. Without question, the climber of the day was Fedir Samoilov, who was the only climber to top both qualification routes and stormed into the semis in first place. Alberto Jimenez Lopez also made it easily, going through in joint 5th. And that is the scene live in Inzai. As you can see, it's a 2-part wall, each one about About 4 meters wide. On the left will be the men, and on the right will be the women. Very strong route setting team. We mentioned Christian Butenhammer just a second ago, joined by Reini Fichting and Ellen Yannico, who of course was a successful World Cup climber in her own right until a season or two ago. So let's have a look at the starting list. This is how the women line up. We've got the regulation, 26 men and 26 women. Julia Fieser of Austria will be first out. Good day for them, for their 3 climbers safely into the women's semi-final. And yeah, interesting lineups on both sides. No huge surprises in the women's semi-final. Pretty much everyone's safely through who you'd expect to see, and a good day, as it always seems to be for Team Japan and Team Slovenia. I'm not entirely sure why Julia Fieser is climbing twice. Maybe they're giving her a second run at the end, or perhaps it's just a small issue with the graphics. It will be Janja Garnbret who climbs the last. Very good day for Janja yesterday. There were 5 climbers actually with 2 tops over on the women's side, just the 1 on the men's. Let's have a look at the men's starting list. Nikolai Iralyovlets of Russia will be first out. Again, 1 or 2 surprises in the men's, but not too many. Hannes Puman missing out. Roman de Grange fell very low on a route. But other than that, it's most of the climbers we'd expect to see through are safely into the semi-final. And as on the women's side, 9 Japanese men safely into the semi-final. So out of 52 competitors in both semi-finals today, the Japanese have 18 of them. Quite incredible. And you can see they're coming out last. Fedir Samoilov, he was on a different planet to everyone else yesterday. The only man with 2 tops on the 2 qualifying routes. And he looks, on form alone, like the man to beat right now. Oh, what perfect timing. The climbers are out. Julia and Nikolai about to get underway. It'll be men on the left, women on the right. Men's route much shorter than the women's. It's 38 moves, 46 on the women's. Not too many big surprises on the men's routes. Not too tough to read, we're told. A bit of resistance. There is a jump actually. As we see Nikolai struggling with the first move, there is a jump up to hold 11 and 12, which obviously whenever there's a jump like that, you want to see a few climbers get through it safely so that you know it's not going to be a stopper move. But other than that, it should be relatively traditional resistance route for the men, with some particularly hard moves entering the head wall. Over on the women's side, much more complex. But apparently I'm told from Ellen Jenico that it climbs more simply than it looks. It looks like it's going to be super complicated, but when you actually get up there, it's not too bad at all. Tricky start for the men. It's it must throw you a little bit when you've got a funny move like that. I saw Nikolai kind of struggling to get off the ground.
Yeah, and it's definitely consistent with how the route setting's been for the rest of the competition as well. I know in the men we had a number of really strong climbers fall between 2+ and 3+ on qualification 2, and then in the women's for qualification 1 there were like a series of bad pinches around 4, and like countless semi-finals just coming off the wall so low. So I think the cruxy starts are going to be something that we might see consistently across the competition.
Yeah, Sean McCall was one of the climbers to fall very low. That's the jump, and Nikolai safely through. As I say, whenever you got a jump low down, you're always slightly nervous that it might be a little bit too hard and we start losing climber after climber on the same move. It doesn't seem to be the case so far. Julia, meanwhile, about the same height on the wall as Nikolai, albeit having done a lot more moves on the slightly more complex women's route. Yeah, Sean McCall, one of the climbers to fall very low yesterday. Fortunately, had a very strong performance on the other route. I think he was the 3rd best climber on the other one. Yeah. And that rescued his place in the semi. I
think Matthias Posch as well, who's coming out early in the semi-final, came off right at the bottom. Like climber after climber would just step off the floor and straight back down again without clipping a quick draw. So I think there was some really, really interesting, and with the other men's qualification as well, we saw a dyno low down similar to the one we have in the semi-final. So there are a lot of really, really interesting results and a few people coming out in order we wouldn't quite expect. So it should be an exciting semi-final in that regard.
Yeah, it really should be. We've got pretty much all of the big hitters, with the odd exceptions, safely into it. Of course, we don't have all the top climbers here. Adam Ondra, Jakob Schubert haven't made the trip. Nikolai suddenly looking like he's struggling here. I think the pumps really kicked in on those pinches. Managed to hang on for another couple of moves, but falls at about mid-height on the route. Julia Fieser, meanwhile, going well. The blue crosses, by the way, on the wall, that signifies a compulsory clipping point. So you have to clip the quick draw marked with the cross from the hold marked with the cross. You're not allowed to go past that hold without having clipped the quick draw. And there's one on both the men's and the women's routes. That boomerang hold, I was talking to the route setting team, and that boomerang hold that we saw Julia Fischer trying to negotiate with was mentioned as one of the crux points on the route.
Yeah, I think she maybe needed to stem out to that foothold out left a little earlier. She'll probably be a little bit disappointed with that. Watching Julie climb in the gym recently, she was looking really, really on form. We saw some really good climbing from her in the qualifications last weekend. So, yeah, it's a bit disappointing that she didn't maybe get her moment of the season, but we'll see how the rest of the climbers go as they start to come out onto the wall.
Sumon Lorenzi of Belgium, next climber out. His compatriot Loic Timmermans is in the semi-final as well. Loic at times seems to have 27th place almost reserved for him. I've lost count of the number of times Loic's been 27th. This time he makes it. So we're looking forward to seeing him climb later on. In the meantime, Sumon Lorenzi and Yuki Hiroshiga, the first of 18 Japanese climbers in today's semi-final. How have you enjoyed the Japanese experience?
Japan's always a lot of fun. Like, it's super different at home, and obviously with the ankle injury, that's kind of put a dampener on the time I've been here. But they're taking really good care of us, and the food's really cool, and the venue's incredible. I really like the sort of arena they've got us in now. So it's always a good time.
We didn't see too much of Julia in action on the women's routes. Let's keep an eye on Yuki Hiroshiga down there bottom right. First good look at the women's route. You see a lot of dual texture volumes employed. If you're not familiar with these volumes, the blue section is very high friction, and then the low friction section is the white part. Ditto with the black and white volumes, such as the one she was about to use for her right foot. It's the black bit that's high friction, the white bit that's low. Looks insecure, this women's route.
Yeah, well, Julie took a really, really long time to climb to where she did, considering how many moves she'd done. So, yeah, I think it looks really sketchy.
Doesn't look too keen to commit to this move, Yuki, but she's not in a particularly comfortable position and wasn't able to commit to the move. So, interesting looking women's route. Real contrast on the left-hand side where the men are climbing and the right-hand side where the women are climbing. Very different routes by the looks of things.
Yeah, it's always hard to come out to slopers in the later rounds of a competition. Like, potentially you've lost some skin from the days before, so you're a little bit sweatier, and you know, you can kind of just get unlucky on a hold like that and just slide off like we saw just then.
So let's stick with the Sumon Lorenzi. It's not too far short of where we lost Nikolai, actually. It looks super pumpy, this traverse up and left. You can see he's on a pinch right on the steepest section of the wall. Doesn't really let up at all. And I was about to say, he's got a really hard move from what we're told coming up. A couple of moves after that, there's a big move up to a yellow pocket that we believe is one of the cruxes. Matthias Posch of Austria, second Austrian out on the wall, will be next. And Risa Ota gets underway, second Japanese climber as well.
Reese is someone I remember seeing in a lot of finals a few years ago, and so it's really cool to see her back in the competition and back in semi-finals. She was always one of the climbers I really liked to watch when I was younger, so it's cool for me to see someone like her back on the circuit and doing well.
Yeah, there's quite a few Japanese climbers back in action we haven't heard from a while. here in Inzai. It's really nice.
That's the thing with the Japanese climbing scene, is there are just like so many gyms with so many high caliber climbers that the quota for participation in the World Cups just doesn't cater for the kind of echelon of athletes that they have. When they get the extra quota for being the host country, the kind of climbers that just come out of the woodwork is insane. You step into the gym and you can have all of the world's best boulderers and then someone you've never seen before burning off some finalists from the World Cup. It's pretty crazy here.
Matthias Posch really struggling with that first move, by the way, on the men's route. He's relatively short, and it's proving quite a battle. We're sticking with Risa for now. I'll just keep an eye on him, and it actually falls. Matthias Posch has fallen on that first move, just to let you know. Oh, how frustrating.
Yeah, he just didn't look too comfortable pulling up over the volume on the first move. I wonder if that's something we're going to see from other competitors as the round goes by.
Well, we'll stick with Risa. That's frustrating for Matthias Posch. We don't want to see climbers falling in the process of getting onto the wall. Risa back where her compatriot fell just a couple of minutes ago. Committed to that move up with the right hand quite quickly, which I think is quite sensible. It seemed as if Yuki Hiroshiga just stalled out ever so slightly.
It's so terrifying to be the next oh, and we just lost Risa there.
Again, another fall slightly out of the blue. I think it caught the B layer by surprise. So Risa Ota falls. Jessie Grupper out next. Finalist last week in Xiamen. Fanny Gibert will be climbing next on the women's route. Let's have a look at how Jessie tackles this first move.
So he maybe wants to start left foot first, which I think the other climbers didn't do. But Jessie's pretty tall, so he shouldn't have too much of an issue reaching through.
Yeah, it was pretty well executed, actually. Climbers have, of course, had observation. We didn't see it on the live stream, but all 52 of them were out in the arena earlier on. Yeah, dream week for Jessie and Xiamen.
Yeah, I remember he turned up in Villar, wanting to make his first ever World Cup semi-final, and first go, killed it. And then, a few comps later in his first World Cup final, I think he's just he's always been super strong, and he's just kind of finding his rhythm. And I think we'll see a lot of really strong performances from him in the future. The whole US team actually is kind of shooting up. Drew Ruana is getting more consistent with his semi-finals. I think Sean Bailey's finding his flow again and getting back into the finals. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see. And then the women's field is as strong as ever.
So he's got the compulsory clip done. For someone coming into World Cups like Jessie, and you've been through that experience, is the big thing just learning the game as much as the physical side of the sport?
I think so. I think you just have to learn to react to so many different surprises that the route setters throw at you. And even though you see the qualification routes climbed and you sort of know the basic gist of things, it always feels different on the wall, and you have to know how to think clearly and fight hard when the route takes you by surprise. And that can take time. Sometimes you'll have amazing performances, and then sometimes it just doesn't work out. And learning and adapting from that is kind of just part of the game and takes some time, I think.
Jessie Grupper did that move semi-statically, the so-called jump, really putting his height to good use. You can see Fanny Gibert in the background there. Of course, this is the end of the World Cup season, or it will be this evening when we have the final, but we do have Toulouse coming up, the Olympic selection event. So a lot of climbers, including some of the French team, gunning for a place in Toulouse and need a big result here in Inzai. Jessie suddenly got himself a little bit tied up in knots. And will be relieved to be out of that position.
Jessie often finds a way to sort of shake out and keep going where you'd least expect it, which is cool.
Yeah, he got really bunched up there.
He's got a lot of endurance, so he can kind of like wrestle his way through a really hard sequence and then find a small crimp and just stay there for as long as he wants, really.
I think he'll need it on this traverse. It's looked hard for everyone that's attempted it so far, and that big move up to the yellow pocket, we're told, is perhaps the crux of the route.
It's interesting as well because the route we're definitely past halfway in terms of height, but there's still about half of the route's moves left to go. So I think the first section's quite spaced out, and then it sort of weaves as we come up now. So there's still quite a lot of climbing to go. And he's already used over half of his time.
Just having a look over his shoulder actually at the time. Jessie. Yeah, we can see one clock from here. Presumably that's Jessie's, 2 minutes. Would seem about right, 2 minutes to go. He goes, it's a big move out to the left with the right hand. Could do with sourcing the feet out. Launches for the pocket. Oh, holds it really well.
Easy, and this is exactly what I was saying before. Like, he looked like he was off just a few moves ago, and he found a spot to rest, and now he's fresh again. It's crazy.
Definitely getting pretty pumped, Jessie Gross, but this is a really strong performance. And finally falls, just entering the head wall. That was actually the second to last quick draw that he slapped with his hand. That's how close he was to the top of the route. It'll put him comfortably in the lead for now. Fanny Gibert, meanwhile, we didn't see much of her while we were following Jessie, but she got a 28 plus, and that puts her into a pretty comfortable first place again on the women's route. So high points being set on both sides. Meichi Narasaki out next, and then Tina Johnson Hafsas of Norway. There she is emerging from the doorway. She's gone for the Jane Kim slipper, the beach sandals or whatever they're called.
Yeah, I often will borrow the slippers from my hotel before coming out to the World Cup.
Well, you can barely go anywhere in Japan without a pair of slippers on. You have to put them on to go to the loo downstairs. Yep. That rule not always observed.
No, I definitely hopped past the slippers on my crutches.
Yeah, we got off on the wrong foot in our Airbnb. I walked in with my shoes on. Owner almost rugby tackled me out the door.
Yeah, it's a big deal here. It's definitely something you don't do.
Yeah, I wasn't really, just kind of forgot where I was for a second.
A lot of climbers, like the men's semi-final lineup, really surprised me watching as a spectator without looking at the results at the time. Like Meichi's performance on the second qualification, I didn't think would be enough for semi-finals. I didn't think that Matthias Posch would make it through. I didn't think Sean McCall, because so many climbers came off so low on the wall, and then a lot of them with scores like 2+ made it through so confidently into semi-finals. It was such a strange round.
Oh, we lose Tina low down. I think this women's route is going to cause a few heartbreaks, because it looks like a route that's pretty easy to slip off.
Yeah, she didn't. The other climbers sort of fought and struggled and had to puzzle their way around that move, and she looked confident, and it just took her by surprise, I guess.
Oh, really interesting. I like this semi-final. We've got very contrasting routes. Not sure all the women will agree that this is a super fun semi-final, particularly Tina, but yeah, really differing styles on both sides of the wall.
Well, I was nervous with such a slow start that maybe the women's semi-final would take a lot of time, but I think everyone's getting knocked off early enough that we're kind of chewing through the climbers a little bit.
Got a reasonable crowd looking on as well, actually, here in Japan. With 18 of their own to cheer on, there's good reason to turn out, but I got to the venue 2 hours ago, and they were queuing out the door. So it's a good atmosphere and a good show so far for the locals of Inzai to watch. Victoria Meshkova now getting underway. Just see her there, she is bottom right. Meichi meanwhile getting into what appears to be the real meat of this men's route, the big traverse out left and then coming back ever so slightly right towards the top. He's just about to get started on that in the final last week in Xiamen.
It's good to see such a turnout because we're kind of far out from Tokyo here.
Second climber who's made that move out not look too tough actually. As I said, I believe that was one of the really hard moves, but both him and Mage and Jesse Grupper have nailed it, albeit both quite tall climbers, which may be a slight advantage on that one. Same move as Jesse. So Meichi will actually move ahead on the count back to his qualifying performance.
And like I said before though, like so many climbers falling off so low on at least one of their routes that I don't think the order in which they come out from the qualifications is going to be indicative of who we see in the finals in this round. I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Oh, we've had another low fall. Victoria Meshkova fell again low on the women's route. Wow, this women's route's basically causing all sorts of problems. We've had a fall on the first move of the men's route. We've had lots of low falls around hole 10, 11 on the women's route. And as you rightly say, Cam, we've already got slightly topsy-turvy results from yesterday's qualifiers.
It's also really interesting to see the women coming off relatively low, but the whole field is still split so far. It's not like a one crux, it's just a really complicated sequence.
Yeah, we actually have the 6 climbers we've had so far. We don't have any with the same score. We've got a 10, a 10 plus, and an 11, so they're on the same kind of area, but still nobody yet tied on score despite the difficulties that the route is producing. Sandra Lettner now makes her way out, and Marcello Bombardi, World Cup winner, is about to get underway on the men's route. Remember, 26 men and 26 women in the semi-final. We're looking for 8 to progress to the men's final and 8 for the women's. Marcello involved in a battle royale within Team Italy for that next Olympic slot. Ludovico Fossali already booked his place for the Olympics next year, but Stefano Ghisolfi, Marcello Bombardi and Misha Pekoruaz all kind of looking for that second slot.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with a lot of the countries at the moment. It's really, really hard to pick exactly who's going to come out on top because everyone has their own strengths. Like Marcello's quite a strong boulderer and is always performing consistently well at the bouldering World Cups. And Stefano's obviously quite strong at lead and on his day can win the lead competition. Yeah, and with only one spot, it's kind of anyone's game.
And of course, there's no guarantee they'll get to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Because we've got Toulouse, and then if things don't work out in Toulouse, it's only one climber going from the Continental Championships. But yeah, the only Italian who has so far booked his ticket is Ludovico Fossali, the speed world champion.
That's it. The Olympic selections is so brutal, and I think on paper it was easy to see how difficult it was going to be to make the cut, but then once you saw the kind of caliber of climbers that were getting knocked back from the selections at the World Championships, it kind of put everything into perspective. And especially with the country quota as well, it's just anybody's game, and I think there are going to be a lot of favourites who just aren't going to be seen at the Olympics.
Marcello, the first climber to fall on the jump. Looked like he came up a little bit short with the right hand. So the jump would appear to be reasonably well set because most climbers getting through it, but it's still causing the odd problem.
I think the jibs that they placed on the volume are actually quite bad in and of themselves, so you have to hit them at exactly the right angle because if you come up too high, they're not positive enough to squeeze. So like a climber like Jesse who decided to go static managed to stay under the slopey jibs, and it made it just that little bit easier to control.
Marcello definitely looked like he went up on the left hand first and the right hand followed. The left just wasn't good enough. Sandra Lettner now in a little bit of trouble, it would seem. She falls in roughly the same area, around 2021. Yes, score is showing up as 20. 1 behind Julia Fischer and 8 behind Fanny Gibert. So yeah, clearly looking at the scores, we've got people hovering around the whole 10-11, and then again looks like 20-21, somewhere around there could be another of the cruxes. Taisei Homer now finalist, podiumist, is that a word? Podium finisher last week in Xiamen.
He was stoked. I love when climber makes their first podium or their first final, and you can see how much it means to them. That was really cool to see him finish on the podium last weekend, and it definitely meant a lot to him.
Futaba Ito will be the next climber out, so it will be all Japan on the wall. I suspect it won't be the last time we're saying that today. Here comes Futaba.
It's not uncommon for all of Japan's semi-finalists just slide on straight through to the final as well.
No. They had a great week last week in Xiamen, and they've got even more climbers in the qualifiers this week, so you'd expect them to get a pretty good chunk of the spots in the final. Futaba Ito nearly blew it actually on the first move there. Here goes Taisei Homer. Yeah, as you say, he was pretty happy with his result in Xiamen. No Adam Ondra, of course, this week, who won in South China last week. Taisei Homer doing it, again, sort of semi-statically, landing the left hand and then kind of in the same motion, bringing the right up.
Yeah, I think the trick with that jump is really just stay low. If you overcook it, you won't be able to hold the jibs on top. You can see from this shot here, they're quite slopey, so there's not much bite to bear down on, really.
What's generally the best tactic to deal with a jump like that? I mean, you know it's low down, so they've probably not set it super hard. Do you try and just think, right, I'm going to go eventually, so I'll just go now, or
yeah,
don't pause too long?
No, I think you have to pause like just the right amount. I think if you don't calculate the jump at all, you will easily make a mistake. But then also, if you hesitate for too long, you can either like burn through your power or psych yourself out. So I think it's important just to trust that the dyno is doable. It's on a lead route. They know we only have one go, so it's just a matter of committing generally, having a good idea of how you're going to tackle it before you come there, and being reactive as soon as you reach that point.
Is it tough though when you're in isolation, you've observed it, not to be dwelling on it? I can't help thinking if it was me, I'd be thinking, oh, that jump. I'd be thinking about it in isolation.
It's definitely something you think about, and I think to an extent you have to. Like, it isn't just another move. Like, it is another element that you don't always see. Like, it's not just simply who's the strongest. You have to calculate exactly how much you're going to give. So to an extent, you have to dwell, and you have to be realistic with the fact that it's going to be a complicated move, and you have to execute it exactly right. But you don't want to dwell on it too long. You start to doubt what you're about to do. Like, you have to just kind of trust that you've done the work and you're familiar enough with climbing movement that it's going to come together.
Let's keep a close eye on Futaba Ito here, because if she can get to that first blue triangular hold, which is actually the one on the right is the one you go to first, we believe, according to the, to the left one, then the right one. The right one is hold 28. That's where we lost Fanny Gibert. Taisei Homer falls at the end of the left traverse. And I think that'll be a 28 for Futaba Ito, but not a 28 plus. Fanny Gibert will stay in the lead for now.
It's a bit of a boulderer's route for the women, I think, in a good way. Like, the complicated sort of technical section at the beginning means that the climbers who are more comfortable with that are going to be able to make it through, but then it'll be the ones that also have the lead prowess to back it up that are going to be able to take it slow through the beginning and have enough juice to get through the rest.
Molly Thompson-Smith, next climber out, and Nathaniel Coleman. There he is, closest to the camera. Traditionally seen as more of a bowler than Nathaniel, but becoming increasingly an all-rounder. Good day in the qualifiers yesterday. Same for Molly, decent day for her.
It's definitely worth noting with the weather here, the challenge of the competition kind of started before the qualifications even begun. We had a lot of climbers get stuck out in Tokyo or out at the airport. I think the American team were in a taxi for 5 hours and only went 17 kilometers. So like Molly, for instance, didn't arrive at the hotel until the day of qualifications almost, and got a few hours of sleep and stepped out. So that could be another reason for the mishmash of results we had yesterday. So I think a lot of climbers will be coming back into their own today after a good night's rest and kind of warming up yesterday.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't have the words to describe just how hard it was raining on Friday around the venue. We had a nice new lake feature actually at the venue, which was not there when we arrived. It was there for a few hours and now has disappeared again, but it rained so hard it completely flooded quite a few of the sports pitches which are around the venue, and it caused, as Campbell said, chaos to a lot of people's travel plans.
I think I got really, really lucky, which was especially lucky considering I was walking around on crutches. I had some friends from my team come and drag my suitcase along for me, and we managed to get the last bus to the airport, and I was blown away that they were even considering driving in the weather that we were seeing, but we made it through and we made it to the hotel with no problems at all, and then I turned up to the technical meeting and was one of the only athletes who'd managed to arrive. So the technical meeting got postponed into the late hours of the evening because the
Nathaniel Coleman, second climber to fall, and actually you can see how close he is to the ground, put a foot down as he fell. Same as Marcello Bombardi. Let's watch Molly. Yeah, as you say, she's one of the climbers who had a travel nightmare on Friday. It was the tail end of the typhoon, I'm told.
Yeah.
Kind of the last sign of a typhoon that's now, what was it called, the Hishiba?
I'm not sure.
I only know because they cancelled one of England's rugby matches.
She's looking confident on this route so far, though. These moves haven't really stumped her yet. She looked a little sketchy at the beginning and managed to kind of claw her way through, and she looks good again, I reckon.
Yeah, she looks really good, and these black volumes here, from what I understand, it's easy to overthink them a little bit. You just got to keep moving. They're actually reasonably good. So this could be a new high point very shortly. That's hole 28. Now if she can move off that, there we go. Same score as Fanny Gibert, but count back will move her into first place for Molly. Didn't look super tired. Maybe just missed it.
I think there's a lot of core tension in that section, and she kind of lost it. She didn't look super solid on the toe hook like some of the boulderers did. I don't know if she'll be too amped with that right now, but as the semi-final goes by, the result might look a little better than she would expect. I think there are enough hard moves at the beginning to take some of the other climbers by surprise. And the holds realistically are only going to get dirtier as we go, so that'll have an effect on the later climbers as well.
Ray Sugimoto, 9th climber out. 2-time World Cup winner in the bouldering, Ray. Natsumi Hirano just made her way onto the stage. There she is with the bow in her hair.
her warm-up is really cool. Like seeing her in the qualifications in Xiamen, she just kind of like tangles herself up into a pretzel before she steps onto the wall. She's super flexible. She's quite small, so I think she has to be.
Yeah. Oh, I have to see this now. I haven't noticed this before.
She's. I mean, all the Japanese climbers are super mobile, but she was one I was watching and I thought it was really impressive.
Ray looking very solid so far, safely through the jump, no problems. Of course, we've got the cleaning break coming up after 13 climbers. As ever, Campbell mentioned the holes are getting dirty. They will get a bit of a scrub after 13 climbers, just to give you an idea of the kind of pace of the final. Natsumi is the 10th woman out and Ray the 9th man. You can see the rest of the lineup still to come. A lot of strong climbers still to emerge on the wall, albeit we haven't got a Jakob Schubert and Adam Ondra and one or two others, Sasha Lehmann. On the women's side, we've got the possible exception of Anna Verhoeven. We've got pretty much everyone you'd expect to see at the business end of a World Cup, so pretty competitive semi-finals on both sides. And Rei Sugimoto currently on the wall, looking very strong. Big move up. Never quite looked convinced by that move, Ray. Almost hesitated halfway.
Yeah, maybe a little more tired than he looked. He kind of just blew off that right hand.
So Natsumi Hirano finds her way up to the compulsory clipping hold. We've lost climbers much lower than that. That's hold 18-19. Yeah, and this next section here around hold 20-21 caused a few problems as well. No problems so far. I don't know why I say it.
Yeah, she looked in cruise control, but straight off. Like I said, there's a lot of tension in that section, and she is quite a small climber comparative to some of the others, so a bit disappointing because she did look strong.
Jakub Konečný of the Czech Republic now. Only Czech representative here, no semi-final for Martin Stranek, Jan Kriz. Eloise Dumont of Belgium will be the next climber on the women's route.
The next woman climber, Eloise Dumont from Belgium.
Jakob's got some real calibre as well. He's had a couple of really strong performances in the last couple of seasons.
For sure, I think last year he had a 9th place in Chamonix, and last weekend he kind of botched his first qualification and then came back and managed to top the next one. So I think he's in a good shape. So we could potentially see some nice climbing from him. But again, it's looking like one of those semi-finals that could be anyone's game.
I think one thing that's interesting is when climbers have been at it a while, Jakob obviously still relatively new to competing, is that they start to develop the consistency. It kind of seems with Jakob, you get him, he's absolutely crushing it one week and then they have a bad week the next time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite seem to have the consistency just yet. But he's definitely got the horsepower.
I mean, and that's super consistent across the field in lead climbing now. It's becoming more in the way that bouldering has less and less consistent. Someone like Fedir is a perfect example as well. Like some weekends he's in 60th and some weekends he's on the podium, and sometimes like yesterday he tops both the qualifications and doesn't even make them look too hard. So I guess everybody's got different strengths, and the route setting is adapting so much with the prospective Olympic showing. So I think it can be frustrating sometimes, but it's also super exciting, and it's making the sport more interesting to watch and to be a part of.
Oh yeah, and as I've mentioned a couple of times, we're missing one or two of the real top-end climbers on the men's competition, and there's an opportunity there for someone. And Fede really took the opportunity yesterday.
Absolutely.
Konechny really had to go for that last move. I think he's burned quite a lot of energy actually figuring out a couple of the moves a little lower down.
Nice rest coming up here on these balls with the knee bar, so if he can establish into that, he might be able to get a little back. He's got just over half his time remaining, so enough to have a quick break and keep going if he can stick on the wall.
I think he's actually maybe a little too tall for the knee bar. Is he now going to try and wedge it in? It doesn't look quite as comfy as it did for some of the shorter climbers.
No, it's a bit of a scum for him rather than keeping him on the wall.
He's having one or two issues reading this route here, Jakob. For the last half a dozen moves or so, he looked like he was not always doing them the most efficient way. And Eloise Dumont, another climber to fall around hole 2021. Looks up, frustrated. I think that's a word we could be using a lot today.
Yeah, Eloise has just had the most interesting season, like so consistently in semi-finals, and then I think maybe never in the top 20 all season, and has always looked in really, really good shape, but just unlucky, and so it's a bit of a shame to see that her World Cup season isn't going to finish with that explosion.
That's how this stand right now. It is Jessie Grupper tied with Meichi Narasaki. Yeah, and as you say, every lead World Cup semi-final, but no finish higher than 22nd. So that is a bit tough to stomach. That's how they stand in the women's right now. Molly Thompson-Smith leading the way, 28 plus. Long way to go in the semi-final, but on such a tough-looking route where there's clearly the possibility of slipping off quite low down, and we could lose one or two of the favourites to a slip. That's not looking too bad a score. 2 World Cup winners in a row coming out on the men's route, by the way. Now we've got Sebastian Halenka now, and then Shuta Tanaka. Sorry, I misread my start list. That's not true at all. We don't have 2 World Cup winners in a row. Completely forget that. We've got 1.
Well, no, hasn't Sebastian Halenka has won a world... Oh, no.
He won in
he did.
Crange, yeah.
Oh, he did, yeah.
You can't... I always enjoy watching him climb because... Luce Duardi, by the way, getting underway on the women's route. Looking forward to seeing her. She was really strong in the Youth World Championship in Arco, already been in a final this year back in Briançon. Sebastian Halenka is just... He'd make a hopeless actor because he cannot disguise his feelings at all. You just know exactly what he thinks.
Super emotional after he finishes the route, whether it was a good one or a bad one.
Yeah, he'd be useless at poker, that's for sure. Yeah, Luce Duardi, one of the great hopes of French climbing. Certainly has the calibre and is beginning to produce the results. Could she turn it into a really big result here in Inzai?
She's just got so much fight. Like even when the route seems like a little bit above her, like in qualifications yesterday, she was screaming her way up the wall. She just seems to be able to pull that next level out when she needs to.
Got herself a little bit tangled up here. Could do with getting her right foot out wide just to regain some balance. Problem is that right foot's where all the weight is. There she does. There she goes. Manages it nicely. When there's a compulsory clip like that, is that pointed out during observation, or are you just expected to know, or does an official generally say that's a compulsory clip just in case you didn't know?
I've not had a compulsory clip in like an IFSC format at nationals. They've been pointed out to us before. I can't remember exactly at a World Cup though what happens.
You would imagine they'd be pointed out. Who knows? Everyone's managed it so far anyway. Sebastian Halenka, meanwhile, on the big traverse out left. Luce Duardi on the big traverse out right, and potentially setting a new high point. This is 28. It will be another climber on 28. I'm pretty sure they'll award a 28. She's pretty established on it, albeit not for too long. But that will be 28 for her, yeah. And she moves into third place ahead of Futaba Ito, who got the same score on countback.
I really, really hope we're not going to be seeing another another tie in the women's semi-final again. But there's enough of the route left to go, I think, and enough hard moves at the beginning. I think as the higher qualifiers come out, we should see a few more people sticking that move, but fingers crossed.
Here goes Sebastian Halenka. Oh, he didn't like that at all. Got to try and cross through. Now he's figured it out. There it is. Might be slightly annoyed at himself that he wasted the energy going up as he originally did with the left hand. And yeah, I think so. Annoyed with himself, Sebastian Halenka, because it's a physical move, but it's not too hard. It's not too hard to read. Just had a moment. He's just lost his way on the route slightly and sadly paid for it. Kochira Coronado out next.
So definitely a confusing sequence from the ground as to whether to go like to bump left like he tried or to cross right. And that's one of the things with on-site rounds like the semi-finals and the finals. In the qualifications we get a forerunning video, so we know the sequence before we step onto the wall. But in the semi-final it's a little bit of a guessing game, and it can even just be as much as what language you speak and who you view the route with.
When you talked about the qualifiers, obviously we don't live stream the qualification round, but we'll just keep an eye on Kochira climbing quickly as ever. How often do you get on the wall and find that the method you've seen on the video is not what you want to do?
Fairly often, I would say, and sometimes it's more significant than other times. There are almost always small differences depending on body type and climbing style and such. And it's super important to watch the forerunning videos objectively, like knowing that it's just one method by someone who might be at a completely different level or style to you. Sometimes there are really, really significant differences. Like yesterday we had a dyno that had a couple of different methods. I know sometimes we had sequences where like the entirety has been skipped because there's a much, much more efficient way of pulling through the move. So it's just one of those things you have to take with a grain of salt, and hopefully you're not the first climber out and you get to see a few different methods of how climbers might tackle certain sections in different ways.
Speaking about tackling sections in different ways, Kochira went for the launch through. She's shaking her head.
She just didn't read the toe hook at all by the looks of things.
Shooter Tanaka struggling a little bit with that clip. Kochira, by the way, 13th climber out, so cleaning break about to get underway on the women's route. Shooter Tanaka, the 12th climber. So hopefully the cleaning breaks will not overlap and we will have non-stop action on the wall. Loic Timmermans, the next and 13th climber on the men's route. No problem for Shooter with the jump. See the women's route in the background there. They'll only have to clean up to hole 28.
Yeah, it'll be a quick clean.
Something amused Shooter. I wonder if it's something the MC said. Having a good old giggle on the route.
Sometimes it's hard to stay focused when you get a nice resting point like this on a route, especially if the crowd or the commentator is interacting with you. Some people, I think, really feed off of it. Like when you watch Will Bosey climb, he really likes to amp up the crowd, and some people it can be super distracting. And then some people just don't even notice. I think that would be the same for a lot of the climbers.
Now then, will Shooter use this knee bar? Doesn't appear to want it. Now just get straight on, so he's into the traverse. So you can see it. This Sebastian Halenka just got a little bit confused on this move. Went with the left hand, came back and went with the right. Shooter's read it perfectly, executed it perfectly.
He looks super comfy.
He does, doesn't he? Crowd beginning to cheer as well. I say we've got a good turnout here in Inzai, hoping for the expecting the same in the final. That was a powerful way of getting that clip done. It does mean, of course, that he can just get moving now.
Yeah, I think that might have been clever, actually. He can come back down to this rest where he looks really comfortable and then progress through the harder section. Really, really heavy climbing in the last sequences of the route.
There you go. Oh, Shooter just slipped off that right foot. Looked like he had a little bit left. He'd been going really well up until there.
That's a shame. He was looking really confident. I thought we were going to see a new high point there for sure.
Yeah, that was a 30. So there's two climbers ahead of him, Jesse Grupper and Meiichi Narasaki on a 30 plus. So it's enough third right now for Shooter. Loic Timmerman's in the doorway there, getting ready to go. And I think the timing will be quite nice, actually. The women's route, as you can see, getting cleaned. I think by the time they get to hole 28, Loic might be still climbing, so we shouldn't have any break.
The next men's climber, Loic from Belgium.
There's Loic, as ever, 40 seconds to observe the route and 6 minutes to climb it. Yeah, he's a tall climber, Loic, no problem at all with that first move.
Yeah, I think Matthias Posch just really picked the wrong position for that one. You haven't seen anyone really struggle too much there.
Cleaning break almost concluded, by the way, over on the women's route, so Aika Tajima will be able to climb in Just a minute or two, I think. Loic got the compulsory clip done, drops back down before he sets himself up for the jump. Made World Cup finals before, Loic. With a couple of climbers missing, it's a good opportunity here, but this men's route is a real test of fitness and route reading. Gets a jump done, no problem. Finds those little screw-on holds that have been added, which, as you say, don't look great, but they're just enough. So there we see women's route cleaned. You can see how much still remains above that from where the rope's been pulled down from. That gives you an idea of how high up the climbers are getting on the wall. 28 plus, still the high point on the women's route, and there are 46 holds.
I'm a really big fan of the wall here in Inzai. It's like just different enough from the rest of the season to stand out, but you know, not too all over the place like potentially the wall in Kran or Arco can be. And I like that it adjusts as well. I think that's a really, really interesting factor, that even the wall itself could change between rounds potentially.
That's a good point, actually. I'm going to ask if they've changed it between any of the rounds. I don't think they have, but I could be wrong.
I imagine it's probably a fair amount of effort to change. And I think, like they said in the qualification preview, there is that like perfect balance between height and overhang. And I think this looks like a pretty good setup. But I like that there are some sort of small angle changes throughout the whole wall, rather than just that basic like vert, overhang, vert that we see on some of the other competition venues. And despite being a bit taller, Loic doesn't really seem to be having too much trouble with that knee bar, which is good.
Yeah, we've seen some taller climbers not look very comfy in it. Here he goes, Loic. Holds the swing nicely. Definitely beginning to feel it now, really shaking out more and more. Elbows starting to come out. .30 plus, the high point for Loic to try and beat, and that will be another 30 plus. So on countback, assuming I'm just waiting for his score to update, he should surely get a plus there, we think.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
It's just he's showing up as 30. Now it's come through, yeah, 30 plus. We're going to first place on countback. Halfway through the semi-final. Bit of a nervous hour watching the rest of it, but
For sure.
could be enough.
At least his qualification was fairly good, so that definitely plays a factor, with a few climbers having fallen on 30 plus as well. However, though, if it does come down to count back with lots of climbers still yet to come falling on 30 plus, 14th or whatever the result he came through on might not be enough, but I guess we'll see. 13th, sorry.
Aika Tajima now, the latest woman to try her luck. We're already into the second half of this women's semi-final. We've only been going 58 minutes, and that's included the cleaning break. So it's a tough route.
It's the sort of route I feel like we'll see half the field, you know, coming off really low, and then the other half timing out. With 48 moves, and we've only seen 28 of them, there's still so much climbing to go.
Oh, able to chalk up on the key traverse out right. That is impressive. So 28 plus, which is moving off those 2 holes as the current high point. If she can execute, which she can, that's 29. So Aika Tajima's now setting a new high point. The foot slipped just as she went to adjust. And she looked like she had a little bit more to give on the route. 29 will be the score. And it will be first place. But for how long? Men's route being clean, by the way, now. Christine Schranz climbing next. There she is. Oh, you can see the Japanese official giving her very strict instructions about when to leave the call zone.
There's nothing quite like standing at the doorway to the call zone, waiting to be given the all clear. Like, sometimes it can take minutes and sometimes it takes seconds. You never know, especially with some of the falls we've seen. Sometimes you step up into the call zone, you start putting your shoes on, really slowly getting ready to go, and then all of a sudden your climber takes an early fall and you're already out.
Yeah, it must be hard not knowing exactly when you're going to start.
Yeah, that's one of the instances in which it is kind of nice to be the first climber out, is you know exactly when you're going to be on the wall. When you come out later, there's a lot of ambiguity as to when you might be climbing, and that can affect your warm-up quite significantly. Say you have a 2-hour warm-up that you know exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it. You have to be quite adaptable if you're coming out later, because there might be quite significant differences in when you expect it to be climbing to when you're actually climbing. World Championships is a really good example of that, with the wall being so short. The routes were progressing really, really fast, and I think I arrived with time to spare and didn't even finish my full warm-up before you get out to climb, so you just have to be kind of ready for anything in that regard.
That must really throw you, though.
It can, but I think in that instance it did, but I think that's one of the factors of being a really successful World Cup climber, and we were talking about that adaptability before, and the things that you learn on the circuit that you might not necessarily expect. It's not just about what you can do on the wall, it's about being able to make up for anything that might happen off the wall, what the warm-up wall looks like, traveling to the venue, accounting for all the sorts of things that might go wrong and might change. And so you have to know your routine and what gets you ready to perform your best, and then also know how to adapt that to any given situation.
Schranz just a little bit short of that compulsory clip. Members of the Austrian team watching on. Oh, just struggling to readjust. Christine Schranz hadn't looked comfortable for about 30 seconds there. Pretty balancy section of moves there.
Yeah, I think with it's obviously an overhanging section of wall, but with the volumes that they placed on it, you can't quite tell from the live stream exactly how high profile those cones are. And so you're really standing over the top of them, which means that the handholds aren't going to be very positive at all, and so you have to find exactly the right body position from which to progress. And that's really been a split amongst the women, is who's found exactly that right position to sit in before they move.
That's how they stand on the men's side right now. You can see some clear clogs around hole 25 and 30. Matthias Posch, by the way, fell basically doing the first move. 1.5 plus he was awarded. Can't imagine the 0.5 or the plus will provide much consolation. Mia Krampel out next on the women's route. Men's route doesn't look, just looking where the route setter is, probably got another half dozen holes to clean. That's how they stand on the women's side. It's Aika Tajima leading the way. I mean, I think if anyone gets past that 29, that's surely going to be enough, given how many climbers have had slipping low down and experiencing problems quite early on the route. Let's see what Mia Cramble can do. I mean, we mentioned earlier about in the Italian team looking for that slot. Slovenia got the same thing, particularly on the women's side.
Absolutely.
Quite a few relatively evenly matched climbers.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. Like on any given day, well, it's been a huge battle between them as to who's going to get the 2 Slovenian spots at Toulouse, even let alone who's going to potentially take a spot. It would be completely unsurprising if Mia and Luchka were to both take finalist positions in the selection event in Toulouse, but ultimately only one of them gets to qualify. It's such a tough game with the Olympic selection.
Yeah, of course, Janja Garnbret already booked her place to Tokyo next year for the Olympics. But you'd imagine there'll be a second Slovenian woman joining her, but who will it be? Of course, poor old Vita Lucan with an ACL tear in her knee. Imagine that is probably it for Vita, so probably going to come down to this lady Mia Crample and her compatriot Luchka Rakovic. So this is where Christine Schransfeld and Mia Crample as well looks like she's having to do a little bit of thinking here. Looks like she's going to go for something quite dramatic, and it really didn't work.
She just completely hesitated. You saw as soon as she pulled up, she like tried to bail out, but there's kind of no escaping what she'd done. I think with regard to the Olympic selections, there's going to be a lot of broken hearts after this competition. It is the kind of final decider as to who's going to be going to Toulouse, and I think there were some climbers that were counting on finishing within that top 20 who've been bumped out over the last weekend or two, and of course there's the European Championship spot and the Asian Championship, but
it's pretty tough because you've got to win them.
Absolutely.
2 South Koreans about to head out, by the way. Hamwoo Kim and Cheon Seo Cheon, the winner of 4 of the 5 World Cups we've had so far this season, and 4 of the 5 World Cups she's ever entered. Didn't have a great day yesterday in the qualifiers. No tops for her. So an ominous sign, or just an off day. We shall see. And Hamwoo Kim, 14th climber, cleaning break, all done on the men's side. Yeah, we've mentioned Toulouse a couple of times. If you're not aware, 27th of November, we start 4 days of competition in Toulouse, and it is a specific Olympic selection event, and we're taking 20 climbers to Toulouse, maximum of 2 per country per gender, and it comes down to your overall ranking in the World Cups. You have to have done at least 2 World Cups in each discipline, and it's your best 2 results in each discipline that count, right?
Well, yeah, best 2 results multiplied together.
Yeah. But then, of course, it gets slightly more complicated. So if you're on your computer looking at the combined rankings, trying to figure out who might qualify for those 20 male and 20 female slots in Toulouse, remember that people who've already made the Olympics are taken out of that. And then also remember 2 people per country. So it gets slightly complicated. So it's not necessarily, in fact, it won't be the top 20 ranked climbers. It'll be the top 20 with a few provisos thrown in.
Yeah, I think positions in the women's list go down to almost 28th place when you take out any considerations, and of course that'll change after the semi-finals and finals.
Yeah, Cheon, by the way, having not competed in enough World Cups in disciplines outside of lead, can't qualify for Toulouse. So if Cheon wants to go to the Olympics, she will have to compete in and then win the Asian Championships, which is next April. you guys have got your Continental Championship in March,
Yeah,
right?
end of March, I think, in Sydney. So yeah, everyone's gearing up for that one. Again, just the one spot, but I think we've got a fairly fortunate
Oh, Hamill
circumstance.
Kim falls on the jump, sorry to interrupt. Third climber we've seen on the jumps. The level of the jump seems to be pretty good. Had a few falls, but not too many.
I think so. I think there should always be. It shouldn't be a gimme. You should have to do it exactly right, like I said before. So it's nice to see that it's still splitting the field a little bit.
Looks similar to Marcello Bombardi. Went with the left hand, suddenly realised he needed the right as well, and it was a bit late. Sorry, you were saying about...
Oh, just that a lot of the top Olympic hopefuls obviously aren't present in the Oceania continent, so we have a somewhat fortunate position, but I think it's still a fairly hotly contested spot for Olympic selection, so it could kind of be anyone's game in that regard as well.
And I'm guessing for you personally, that's where all your focus is at now?
Yeah. As far as Olympic selection goes, that's where I'm headed. Yeah, there's a few of us I think who are really gunning for the spot, and what will be, I guess, in the end. But it's exciting, and it'll be cool to finally climb in the combined format and see what that feels like.
Pretty tough.
Yeah.
Imagine.
It looks like a tough game. I was going to be testing it out at the China Open next weekend, but obviously with my injury, I'm going to sit that one out now. But it definitely looks like a brutal format.
Oh, Cheon crossing through. Up to 29. If she can move off this, it'll be a new high point. She'll have the lead anyway, thanks to countback. You can tell that move up to 29 is hard, though. She had to really throw for it. So high point set now by Cheon. Teeth are gritted. She's working hard.
This route doesn't let up. It still looks really hard.
Well, there's been some complaints from some of the women climbers as we lose Cheon somewhere around, I think that's a 34. I think that'll be a 33 plus for her. New high point anyway for Cheon. There's been quite a lot of talk that the women would like harder routes.
I think so.
I think they got one.
Yep. I think there's been a lot of routes that have been set easy to a point and then a bit of a stopper. Yeah, I think it's nice to see what seems to be a fairly consistently hard route. Like, there are some definitive points that are harder than others, but for the most part, it seems to be splitting the field fairly well, and every climber has looked like they've had to fight for where they've gotten to, whether it be with body position or with pump.
Sean McCall safely through the jump. Was slightly concerned he might find the first move hard, being a shorter climber, but clearly not. We joined him around hole 10. Impressive he made the journey over here, to be honest, Sean. He'd already sealed his Olympic selection. He just came because he likes competing.
Yeah, it's crazy. He had the same plans as me, so we were in Doha for the World Beach Games and then flew straight to China for the Comp in Xiamen, and then here to Inzai, and then he'll be in the China Open next weekend as well. So, but I guess if you really like competing, then why not?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just... I think if it was me, well, there's probably a reason why Sean's had the career he's had and I haven't. Because if it was me, I'd be on a beach by now. But he's got the motivation.
That's it. Like, competitions can be tiring, but they can also be a really good way to stay focused. So using that as a tool to keep his motivation up, rather than sort of like getting complacent with the Olympics coming up, could be a good strategy.
Absolutely nailed the two dynamic moves on this route so far. Sean McCall going well here. 30 plus. Still the high point. And we just need to zoom out a little bit. That is hole 30 and that is 31. So Sean finding a new high point. Pushing it out further and further. He's the 15th climber out.
If he's going to be able to make this clip, I don't think so.
Great work from Sean McCall. He looked a little bit frustrated. I think if he manages to get a look at the scoreboard, might be a little happier. Yeah, I mean, once he ignored that clip down by his feet, you kind of knew he was really feeling it.
When you miss a clip like that, it can be kind of frustrating not knowing exactly where you might be scored to as well, just because there is a certain point where it's deemed impossible to be able to reach the clip, and so that it becomes a factor in his score. And that's why I quite like these compulsory taped clips as well in some of the more ambiguous sections, just because you know that regard it's completely fair across the board. Everybody knows where the last acceptable clipping position is.
Margot Hayes on the wall now. Yeah, basically if you climb beyond the last clippable position for any of the quick draws, you can keep climbing, but you won't keep getting scored. So we're assuming that, I think Sean would be able to say he could have clipped from where he was, but if the judges and the route setters feel differently, then he may get a slightly lower score than it would have appeared from his performance on the wall.
I think so. I would imagine just from watching that it was possible to clip from the yellow crimps, but ultimately it's up to the route setters as to what they deem acceptable, and to the judges, of course.
Here goes Margot now chasing down the new high point of 33 plus set by Chance.
Margot made a really, really comfortable top of women's qualification 1 yesterday.
It was comfortable.
Kind of insane. She didn't really make any of it look too difficult, which was cool to watch, but unfortunately not so in the semi-final.
Now that'll be a 26 plus for Margot, not going to be enough for the final, sadly for her. Her compatriot is on the wall as well, Rudolph Ruana.
Oh, and straight off on the dyno as well.
Fourth climber to fall on the jump. Frustration for him. He had a pretty amazing World Championships all told earlier on in the year in Japan, 2 months ago, and Hachioji. Not quite worked out here in Inzai for him. Frustrating one.
Yeah, he's a climber who's definitely physically got the capacity to be really successful, and I think he's just like figuring out those little niche elements you have to put together.
Natsuki Tani now, 8th to last climber out on the women's side, so we will know our first finalist by the time she is done with the climbing. Some consultation going on between the officials down the front.
Potentially with regard to Sean.
Yeah, I suspect you could be right.
Nevertheless, it's a high point.
It'll be a high point, yeah.
I think he stuck some pretty convincing moves in order to establish that, so regardless, hopefully it's enough for the final.
Natsuki Tani climbing now. Britain's Jim Pope just had his 40 seconds individual observation. He's making his way onto the wall.
Jim took his best ever World Cup finishing last weekend, first ever top 10.
Yeah.
And his first senior final at the European Championships as well before that. So he's obviously back on form. I think he had a bit of a tough season last year and this year, but it looks like he's kind of come back into his own, which is cool.
Yeah, I felt a bit sorry for him last week. He got the same score in the semi-final as the person who was second.
Yeah.
And he ended up 9th.
Yeah, he was the only person with that score who got bumped out on countback.
Yeah, so it was a bit harsh. Well, they're the rules. But couldn't help feeling a little bit sorry for him. I actually went to the Borderless Museum exhibition in Tokyo this week with Jim.
Yeah?
Yeah, me, Jim and Alex Kazanov. It was, yeah, just have a look on online, you'll see what I mean. Utterly bizarre. They actually had a sort of interactive bouldering thing.
Oh, okay.
It was quite funny actually. We were getting briefed by the woman. I was thinking, Yeah, you don't actually know who these two people are, do you? And she was explaining about how you boulder and everything.
What bouldering is.
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly. Yeah.
I think Jim Pope knows what bouldering is.
Yeah, I was thinking. I know you give this briefing to hundreds of people every day, but I'm pretty sure you've never given it to a World Cup climber. Jim safely through the jump anyway. And on his way, Natsuki Tani up to the compulsory clip. Just had to readjust ever so slightly. She's navigated this well, Natsuki Tani. See in the background Jim's foot there, so he's still good. Just looking over my shoulder, he's just in the knee bar. Natsuki Tani, meanwhile, absolutely on one of the cruxes of this women's route. Finds the toe hook. We'll need to get the clip done. There it is. That's hole 27. 33 is the current high point, or 33 plus to be specific.
Really confidently taking that cut. But again, 28 plus.
Yeah, it'll be 28 plus. 5th place. It'll end up being 3rd, actually, with count back. So we know Cheon is progressing to the final. 7 climbers to go, and she's leading the way. Here's Jim.
Starting to look a little pumped, maybe.
Yeah, begins to look a little pumped. Big move up to the pocket. Oh, couldn't quite hold on to it. Always looked like he was a couple of millimeters short. And sadly for Jim, I don't think he's going to match or better his result from Xiamen. I mean, right now that puts him... let's see how the judges saw it, actually. It'll be almost certainly a 25 plus, which would move him up to 6th. But yeah, I think he'll end up getting bumped a little bit lower down than the 9th he took in Xiamen.
The next woman climber, Miho Nonaka from Japan.
Miho Nanaka, looking forward to seeing her climb. We all know, cameraman zooms straight in on the shoulders. She's had shoulder injuries on both sides. We've seen her sort of with as much tape showing as skin on her shoulders in some competitions. This time, no tape at all.
Just on the wrists.
Just on the wrist, yeah. But with the shoulders, sometimes she's absolutely covered in it. Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like she'd fall apart if you took the tape off.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only thing holding her arms on. But no tape this time. Hopefully, bodes well.
She again looked really, really strong in qualifications. Like kind of some lead climbing I hadn't really seen from her before. Didn't look like she... Often with some of the bouldering specialists, you see them kind of rushing the moves because maybe they don't have the same endurance that the other climbers might. But no, she topped the second qualifier really confidently and was able to take her time and look fit and like make calculated decisions the whole way through the route. So we could see a really good climb from Miho with the kind of bouldery, precise sections at the beginning and maybe enough endurance to pull through some hard moves in the upper sections of the wall.
Yeah, Sean Bailey climbing on the men's route. You were in Doha. Miho went pretty well in Doha as well.
Yeah, Miho was certainly the standout athlete there. It was a clear game between her and Petra Klingler. And Miho kind of just stepped ahead. But I think, it's been a little while since she had that shoulder injury, and I think she's been able to get back into form and looking strong again. Oh, a little bit of a dry fire there, though, on that hold.
I really hope she can stay fit because she's really one of the top competitors on the women's side. So frustrating. It must be even more frustrating for her, but it's frustrating for us watching when she's being held back by injuries slightly.
I think, yeah, as an athlete, you're like constantly towing that line between pushing yourself to your limit and past the limit. And I think it's just part of the game of being one of the best is always being on that cusp, and sometimes you push it a little bit too far. But it's often a game of who can best manage their injuries throughout the season rather than avoiding them completely.
You know, just getting set up on these black volumes. Will probably clip from that left hand. That's what we've seen most climbers do. There she is. Remember, if she can move herself into second place, so she could get a 29, it'd be enough for a place in the final. Actually, she'll have to settle for a 28 plus and wait and see. This is it from another angle. Went slightly over it, actually. Had to drop down onto that scroll. And there is Sean Bailey.
Sean still looks pretty casual here on the men's semi-final.
Yeah, looking super smooth. Laura Agora just being announced to the crowd. She'll get her semi-final underway after the 40 seconds of observation. So actually there's 8 climbers to come after Sean, so no matter how well things go, and things are going pretty well, he won't have booked his place in the final. He'll have to watch a couple of climbers. And this is a super strong performance so far. Definitely getting pumped now. Big move coming up. Oh, did so well to execute that. You can tell the body tension was absolutely at the limit. Brilliant stuff from Sean Bailey. And I'd be amazed if that wasn't enough to land him a place in the final. So I think they'll give him a 34. They haven't given him a 34. Moves into first place. So if one climber of the remaining 8 does not manage to catch and surpass his 34, he will be in the final. So as sure as he can be, I suppose. Sean Bailey, that he's found a way through. Josh Larson, the American coach, just visible in the shot for a second there. He'll be a happy man with that one. There he is, clapping. Nice work from Sean. 2 Seans leading the way right now. McCall and Bailey both on 34. Sean Bailey ahead of Sean McCall on count back to qualification results. Laura Agora now, double youth world champion from Arco. Kai Harada climbing next on the men's route. Had the win literally in his hands in Xiamen last week. Couldn't hang on to it. Here goes Kai. Oh, and falls immediately.
Oh, I completely missed that.
Yeah, it was seconds. It was quicker than Matthias Posch, honestly. Just pulled on.
And slipped straight off.
Literally a second or two later. Oh, Kai Harada, especially after the disappointment of last week.
He looked nervous. Like, from the ground, he was blowing the chalk off the first volumes. He didn't look super confident.
Let's stick with Laura Rigora. That's a disastrous result for Kochira. It means Sean Bailey is in the final now, by the way. Laura got a real scrap on her hands here, but as I say, Youth World Champion in boulders, so she has got plenty of power. Can she use it? Hiroto Shimizu got getting climbing on the men's route. Here's Laura Rigora, that's 28. Can she do this move up to 29 that Mio Nanaka was not able to do? You can see getting really tired. Laura Rigora needs to keep fighting, definitely needs to get her feet on. And it's to be a 28 plus for her, and a slightly painful looking fall, I think. Let's have another look at Kochira. I've got a replay coming up. Right foot just popped.
Just straight off.
Yeah, and you can see him looking at it, just thinking, I cannot believe I'm back on the floor.
This has been almost a bouldering competition. The amount of climbers who've... Well, Matthias Posch, for instance, only clipped draws on one of the 3 routes he's climbed the entire weekend. And so many other climbers have seen... I think the amount of climbers I've seen fall before clipping the first draw here is more than I've seen in my entire career.
Oh, I think you're right, yeah.
Anywhere else.
Yeah, that's quite the stat, actually. He's only clipped quick draws on one route. Matthias. Wow. I suppose in defence of the route setters, though, there's been some smaller climbers get through the first move, no problem.
Oh, I don't think it's a factor of reach. I think they're really technical starts, and like we've seen, for some of the climbers, they're just not difficult. You have to find the right position, and it's all just one of the many sort of factors of climbing that you have to take into consideration at a World Cup level, is that the routes are hard from the ground, and you have to be ready. And I think often it's the stronger climbers that get taken by surprise on those sorts of routes. Usually they're not expecting to have to try super hard from the bottom, and so maybe not ready to be taken by surprise so early.
We just caught a glimpse, by the way, of Jane Kim. She is actually just set off on the women's route. Picked up her 60th World Cup medal last week in Xiamen. Hiroto Shimizu now. Safely done the jump. So 6 climbers still to go. So as I say, Sean Bailey is first confirmed finalist over on the men's side. Over on the women's, 5 climbers to go. So Cheon, Aika Tajima and Laura Rigora will all progress to the final. Miho Nanaka, Natsuki Tani, Molly Thompson-Smith, Fanny Gibert and Luce Duardi would be the top 8 if it was to finish this way. But with Jane Kim, Lutz Garakovic, Ai Mori, Aki Noguchi and Yanya Gambret still to come, it would seem unlikely that that's how it will finish. Hiroto Shimizu now getting the knee bar in, using the lower of the right little jibs for the feet.
One of the sort of lead climbing purists of the Japanese team, I think.
Yeah, there's not many of them. Bags of endurance. He's been on the wall quite a long time, actually. He's 2.5 minutes remaining, so he's already been climbing 3.5. Just as a quick look at the clock himself.
He's always slow though when you watch him climb.
Yeah.
It always takes time. Everything's very considered and measured.
So a score of 34 would be enough to book his place in the final. Got a reasonably long way to go before that Hole 34 not even in the camera shot just yet. No problem with the jump. Definitely looks like he's got some endurance left. Another look at the clock. 1:35 left. Jane Kim, by the way, not yet onto the big traverse right on the black volume. She's just done the compulsory clip, so we'll keep an eye on her, but we'll stick with Hiroto for now. Looking very solid on hole 30 there. Definitely getting a little bit pumped now.
One big hard move to go.
Oh, I've still no idea how he stuck that. Hard move after hard move, getting really pumped. How hard can he fight? How long can he go? That will be a 32 plus for him. So not enough to guarantee a place in the final. It'll be enough for a place in the provisional top 8, but not enough to guarantee it. So Jane Kim now, we can concentrate entirely on what she's up to. And again, that 28 plus move, if she can score 28 plus count back, we'll see her into the final. We don't actually have a clear line of sight on Jane Kim's clock from here. The scoreboard's in the way. So we'll...
I can't imagine there's too much time remaining. She's been on the wall for a while now.
2 minutes, I've just been told in my headphones. 29, so that's Jane Kim safely into the final. If count whack was to be an issue, though, you want the best score you can get in the semi-final, and of course Jane Kim doesn't realise that that is her in the final, so she will keep going for sure. 33 plus. Cheon's high point, and now her compatriot Jane Kim is chasing it down.
Really not looking too phased so far, though.
She never does so.
No, that's exactly the thing, though. Jane Kim is always... She's cruising until she's off.
Yeah, and you go, oh, she was tired. I realise now. Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely working hard here. 1 minute left, I've just been told, for Jane Kim. Hole 33 is that next one, just immediately left of the next bolt. Here she goes, Jane Kim. Sticks it. Just trying to figure out what to do with the feet. Goes up to hole 34, falls short. It'll be 33 plus, and first place due to count back. Jane Kim will overtake Cheon in the rankings. Let's have another look. You could tell she was getting really tired. And she was pretty accurate on the hold. I just don't think she had anything left. And as I say, the female climbers, some of them have been quite vocal about wanting harder routes. I think she's just being told she made the final. There we go. They've certainly got one this weekend. Alberto Gines Lopez now. The sixth to last climber out on the men's side, so Sean McCall has booked his place in the final.
I think Sean will be pleased to think that he could start the competition by, again, not clipping the first straw on the route and then see himself through to the final.
Yeah, it's a pretty good story.
I was sitting with Molly Thompson-Smith when he fell, and she was texting Jan Hoyer back home in Germany, and had an agreement that if Sean made the semi-finals, Molly had to buy Jan dinner, and then vice versa. And we were so confident that he wouldn't be able to come back from a 2+, but here he is through to the final now, which is almost unbelievable.
And someone's out of pocket for dinner. He's got some heavy strapping on that right bicep. He's been great to watch this year, hasn't he?
He just never lets go.
And that is a good recipe in league climbing.
You think that he's off, and he's not. His fight on the final in Chamonix was really one of the highlights of the season, I think.
Yeah.
It was over, and then it was he just kept going again and again and again.
He basically fell off for about 10 moves. Just didn't appear to be coming back towards the ground. It was amazing. This is almost certainly him booking a place in the final, by the way. Oh, whoa. Confident to let the feet go like that. And could we see the first top of the day? Alberto Hines Lopez definitely tired, but fighting as ever. Feet cut loose again. So he got one more move to the top. Can he get it? Is he too pumped to clip? We'll find out in just a second. Oh, he's got himself in a good position. Looks slightly tenuous. But he finds a top. Alberto Hines Lopez. Immaculate performance from him. First top on either side of the semi-final. And it comes from the young Spaniard. Lucka Rakovic, the recently crowned European champion, is on the wall. What a performance from Alberto.
The cut, those yellow crimps are bad.
Yeah.
They are really bad.
I think it was an intentional cut loose as well, yeah.
For sure. I think that's kind of the only way you can do it, but
yeah.
When Sean Bailey had to take it, I didn't even think it was possible, but that was seriously impressive.
Well, we've said that there's an opportunity here with one or two climbers missing that you might expect to see in the final. Alberto Hines Lopez has picked up a couple of podiums as Lucka Rakovic falls well short of where she'd need to be for a place in the final. That is a surprise. She's been going so well. She's been in a rich vein of form, and the look says it all. Distinctly unimpressed. Well, yeah, just going back to Alberto Hines Lopez, I mean, big opportunity, and he's certainly taken it in the semi-final.
He's definitely someone who's kind of just waiting for their first gold medal, I think.
Kind of feels that way, doesn't it? You feel like they're going to start coming. Kochira Fuji now. We've got 5 climbers left, and still, including Kochira, 3 Japanese climbers. Yuki Hada and Kochira Coronado still to come. Ai Mori will be out next. There she is. Talking about climbers that won't let go.
Yeah, exactly. She'll like crux out at the bottom of the route, and then it kind of doesn't really seem to phase her. It's like once one hard section is over, she can get everything back before the next one.
Yeah, her ability to recover mid-route is probably the best on the circuit, I would say.
I think so.
Yeah.
She is one of the smallest climbers in the field, though, which it'll be interesting to see exactly what method she takes through these first sequences.
Here goes Kochira, just needs to set up for the jump. Trying to find the right position. He goes up with the left hand. It's the third climber we've seen do that when they go with the left and realise when they get there that they need the right as well. 5 climbers fallen on that move. 3 in pretty much the same way that Kochira did. Kochira, I don't think was even intending to bring the right hand up. He went pretty much one-handed.
Yeah, I think he just was taken by surprise as to maybe how little there was on those jibs. Like I said before, I think they're enough if you stick them absolutely perfectly, if you get your thumbs over the volumes and all, but on their own, I just don't think there's enough bite to really bear down on.
So, big casualty, Kochira Fuji. won't be in the final. Sadly, won't be anywhere near the final. Yuki Hada out next, and it's Stefanoga Solfi, then Kochira Coronado, and then Fedor Samoilov. Mori on the wall on the women's side. Akio Noguchi still to come. Yanya Garnbrett still to come. There you can see it scores all the way down to 10. Pretty clear where some of the cruxes have been. Exiting this black volume section. Clearly one of the cruxes. She didn't clip from the compulsory position.
Ah. Okay, well then that'll be her...
But she'll be allowed...
Attempt finished. No, I think you move past and...
Yeah, she didn't clip from the compulsory position, so the first climber we've seen have any problems with that.
That's the judge calling her down.
Yeah, and that is the judge calling her down. Oh, that is a shame for Mori.
That's
Well, we were discussing earlier whether the climbers had been explicitly told or whether they just have to know the rule themselves, but Mori, yeah, didn't get it clipped.
I guess you just get into a bit of a flow state, and she felt like she could clip further along and didn't notice the X, or maybe didn't understand the rule.
It's so frustrating as a climber, though. I mean, it's Mori. Of course, she wasn't tired, but yeah, you got to obey the rules, and you got to clip from a certain position, and she didn't do it. But that's frustrating.
Nervous wait probably for Molly Thompson-Smith at the moment.
Yes.
Needs one more fall to go through to the final.
Next women climber, Akio Noguchi from Japan.
Just so you know, by the way, I was interested in the wording of the rule, and I'm just looking. I'm sure everyone at home knows it's Rule 7.3a about the compulsory clipping points. The chief route setter may rule that a protection point must, for reasons of safety, be clipped from a particular hold or earlier, in which case such holds and the relevant protection point shall be clearly marked with a blue cross and pointed out during the route observation. So they are pointed out to the climbers.
There you go.
There you go.
I think I would imagine she just simply forgot.
Yeah.
Got into that like state of flow and just kept moving. I think the choosing which position to clip from for a lot of us is very reactive. We tend to just find the best spot as we go along. If it feels good, you clip, you get it out of the way, and don't really put too much pre-planning into it.
So, such a frustrating result for Mori. It is still all Japan on the wall, though. Yuki Hada cutting loose on the men's route. Akio Noguchi, about 10 moves up the women's route. What can Yuki Hada do from here? Getting into the real meat of the route where the place in the finals will be decided. Oh, he does so well to hold that swing. He's the fourth to last climber out, so he needs to get himself into fifth. That's Loic Timmermans right now. Oh, and he's just a little short, I think. Let's wait for the scores to update. No, he's one move further on than Loic. 31 to Loic's 30 plus. So Akio now has to get the clip done. Akio's done a few of these things. She knows that she has to clip from there. 67 World Cup medals for Akio as of last week.
Wow.
How many World Cups have you competed in?
Oh gosh. I think if you count all the disciplines, it's something around 20 now.
So it gives you some idea
Yeah.
to have been on the podium in
67 of them. And 20 World Cups is still like a few years worth of comps.
That's quite a lot.
From when I was still in youth and such, so...
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a pretty good tally. Here goes Akio. These volumes will be familiar to expert boulderer like her. Second to last climber out, Akio. So she needs to better Molly Thompson-Smith's 28 plus. She has done that. I think Molly is just going to miss out, you know. Molly might end up 9th. She's down to 8th now. Let's stick with Akio. Feet look like they cut loose just as she went for that move, but it won't matter for her place in the final. It might matter if it came down to count back, and it will matter for the order in which they come out in the final, but it doesn't affect her being in the final. Here's Stefano Gisolfi, third to last climber out, so the top 5 are guaranteed their place in the final. That's Alberto Hines Lopez, Sean Bailey, Sean McCall, Hiroto Shimizu and Yuki Hada. Stefano's had a bit of a strange season really. He hasn't quite found his form of the last few years. Perhaps it's the effect of training for 3 disciplines all of a sudden.
Perhaps. I think sometimes bad competitions just line up a little bit. There can be so many different factors that go into a good performance. Oh, I was a bit nervous about his arm stuck behind the rope there.
Yeah, it's straight. It's quite surprising you didn't notice it really.
I think the way he did the sequence prior to the jump meant that he'd kind of gotten himself into that situation and didn't really have a way of getting out of it. He wasn't in a position like some of the others to shake out and rest.
His compatriot Marcello Bombardi fell going up on that jump. Stefano manages to pull it off. Janja Garnbret, the last climber out, is underway on the women's route. I felt she was back to classic Janja yesterday.
Yeah, she definitely looked good in the qualifications. No problems with those routes whatsoever. Been a really interesting season for her, of course. Sometimes she's just looked like her usual unstoppable self, and then other times. But I think the field is just progressing so much.
So Stefano will, I'm sure, find the knee bar. There he is, locates it. Janja Garnbret there. Needs to give this route plenty of respect because it's spat off some pretty good climbers unexpectedly, including on this next move here where the feet aren't great. Got to get your balance right. So we've got Stefano Gisolfi on the top right, Janja Garnbret on the bottom right. Now we're focused on Stefano. Oh, the feet cut loose. Done well there to hang on to that. With only 2 climbers still to go after him. Yeah, he needs to match or surpass Loic Timmerman's 30 plus.
Which it looks like he'll do.
Yeah, he's on 30 now.
No problems.
Yeah, so that's Stefano into the final. That's Loic getting bumped down again. Nervous afternoon for him. Might have done enough. Might have done enough. Stefano's done enough. Couldn't match Alberto Hines Lopez and top the route. I mean, to be honest, no one else has looked close to it. No one else has got within 4 moves of it. Janja, meanwhile, the last climber on the wall, needs a 28 plus. So the 2 blue triangles above and right of the last black volume are 27 and 28. So if she can get established on them and move towards the next hold, she will have secured her place in the final. So that's 28. if she can attempt the next move, let alone stick it. That will be her in the final, and Molly Thompson-Smith moves down to 9th. So Yanya safely into the final. Be great to see someone have a really good look at the top of this women's route. Yanya, to me, looks the strongest of anyone that's been here so far.
It would be absolute insanity, I think, to see a top from here, but if anyone's going to pull that one off, it'd have to be Yanya.
It would be insanity, but so would clean sweeping a boulder season and winning 3 World Championships in a week. She's done them this year, so
I guess it wouldn't be the most absurd thing that Yanya's pulled off in her career.
well, she's definitely going to go into the final with the high point, we know that, and I have to say, Yanya looks like she's got a few moves left in her as well. Going really well here.
It looks like it's only just starting to get hard.
Yeah, out to hole 38. It's only 46 on the route. The score's updating almost in real time, not too far off. Really scrapping now, Yanya. That's hole 40. 6 more moves to go. Could we see a top here? She really looked back to her best yesterday in the qualifiers. She looks absolutely immense here in the semi-final. No doubt who the best climber's been so far this weekend in Inzai. Half a dozen moves to go. You can see Yanya definitely getting pumped and just falls as she steps out to the right. Might be slightly frustrated, but the result is what she will have wanted. She comes top in the semi-final round, so if it comes down to count back in the final, she'll win the competition. Let's just have another look. You can see how far out her elbows were. Definitely getting pumped and just couldn't control it as that left foot came off. Shakes her head, maybe feels she had a few more moves in her, maybe she feels she could have topped the route, but comfortably ahead of the competition, half a dozen moves ahead of them. Here's Kochira Coronado. We don't always see him as often in World Cups as we used to, and it's nice to see him back on the wall.
Well, he's been injured.
Yeah.
I think it was a knee or an ankle.
I think it was a knee.
Yeah.
Don't hold me to that. Lower limb.
Yeah, lower limb injury, and it definitely required surgery.
Ah, yes. I'm trying to picture where it was now. I remember him falling, and I'm just trying to remember which World Cup it was. Someone will remind me, I'm sure. But yeah, it was quite unpleasant, I remember. When someone falls and you know they're injured. But it's good to see him back. And I'm pretty sure it was a knee. Just getting himself set up now. Oh, comes up short on the jump. Another climber who just didn't look that convinced by it. Kochira, that's disappointing. 6th climber to drop it on the jump. There's Yanya having a word with Eddie, Alberto and Luchka. And was that Luchka saying to Yanya, you got the best score perhaps? So Fedor Samoilov about to come out. He will be the last climber in today's semi-final. That's how it ends up in the women's. Yanya Garnbrett in first place, Jane Kim and Cheon Seo, South Korea, were 2nd and 3rd, and then Akio Noguchi, Aiki Tajima, Miho Nanaka and Natsuki Tani, the Japanese representatives, with Laura Gora there joining them in 6th. Molly Thompson-Smith and Fanny Gibert, slightly unlucky you might think, having got the same score as the people above them, but missing out on a place in the final. Here comes Fedor, absolutely the best climber yesterday, but boys, he got some competition. Alberto Hines Lopez absolutely crushed his way to the top of the route. And if Fedor wants to go through to the final in first place, he will have his work cut out and he will have to top the route. Been a really enjoyable semi-final actually, albeit for kind of different reasons on the men's and the women's side. But I like the setting.
Yeah,
routes are hard.
I've really enjoyed the route setting across the whole competition so far, and the semi-finals haven't let us down at all.
Has been excellent entertainment. Fede Samoilov, the last climber out. All sewn up on the women's side. And what's at stake here is for Jessie Grupper and Meichi Narasaki. They're currently tied in 8th place, which means if Fede cannot catch them on 30 plus, then we'll have a 9-man final tonight. If he can catch him past them, they will both miss out on the final. So Alberto Hines Lopez, Sean Bailey, Sean McCall, Stefano Gasolfi, Hiroto Shimizu, Yuki Hada and Loic Timmermans have all booked their place in tonight's final. It's Jessie Grupper and Meichi Narasaki, currently tied for 8th place, who will be watching on nervously. So Fede has got to get to 30 plus, which, if you can picture it, is the big wide red pinch. And I don't even need to finish the sentence because Fede Samoilov, who was so good yesterday in the qualifiers, topped both routes, the only man to do so, falls on the jump.
He just didn't look too convinced.
And that means that Jessie Grupper and Meichi Narasaki will both progress to the final. We'll have a 9-man final tonight, and Fede Samoilov will not be there. Big shout out, though, I have to say, to Jessie Grupper. 2nd World Cup final in a row. What a trip this has been for him.
Yeah, it looks like he's just sort of found that rhythm and is making it work.
Meichi Narasaki also in the final for the 2nd week running as well. Fede looking absolutely hacked off. And I have to say, I can understand why. So that's how it finished on the women's side. Yanya Garnbrett, Jane Kim, Chensa, Akuna Gucci, Aika Tajima, Laura Gora, Miho Nanaka and Natsuki Tani, your final 8. Molly Thompson-Smith, Fanny Gibert missing out by the narrowest of margins. Count back to the qualifying round. And Luce Duardi, Fataba Ito and Margot Hayes, the remainder of the top half of the order. Disappointing one for Mori. Ends up 20th, didn't clip the quick draw from the compulsory clipping spot and therefore had to end her attempt. And a bit lower down the order, we had a few climbers falling pretty low down, including Tina Jonsson Hafsas and Victoria Meshkova. Let's have a look at the men's results. No doubt who is the winner of today's semi-final. Alberto Hines Lopez topping the route. I have to say, the only climber that looked really capable of topping it, and he more than did it. Absolutely smashed it. He'll be joined in the final by Sean Bailey, Sean McCall, Stefano Gisolfi, Hiroto Shimizu, Yuki Hada, Loic Timmermans, Jessie Grupper and Meichi Narasaki. See the rest of the top half there: Jim Pope, Rei Sugimoto and Taisei Homer. Fede Samoilov in 18th would have hoped for so much after an excellent performance yesterday, but it wasn't to be. A lot of climbers falling on that jump low down. I think it was 7 in the end. Kai Harada and Matthias Posch, sadly for them, really struggling with that first move off the ground. But Campbell, all in all, 2 very different routes, but 2 very entertaining semi-finals.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the semi-final here, and I think we'll be in for a good show for the finals this evening.
All right, well, good luck with the ankle.
Thank you.
I hope the news is good, and we will see you next year for the World Cups.
Absolutely, I'll see you guys then.
Looking forward to it. And we will see you at home at 4 p.m. Japanese time for the finals, with the women climbing first. Look forward to seeing you then.